Well, today we will see what can be a phobia for many, and that is getting stuck in a hole in a cave. These 5 explorers wanted to have an adventure exploring caves with very small passageways, but they got stuck in a hole and were left there to die. If you want to help me out just a little bit, all you have to do is give this video a like. Let's just get into it. The Nutty Putty cave system in Utah is very tough for most cavers and requires a ton of experience, and it has been closed since 2009 because of what happened to John Edward Jones. The 26-year-old father had experienced caving as a child, but hadn't done it in years. But in 2009, he decided to go in the Nutty Putty cave system for the first time with his family as a bonding experience, and it turned out to be his last. There's a formation known as the birth canal which is really tight, and John decided to find it and go through it. He thought he found it and started crawling through it, but it was actually the wrong passageway, and when he tried to go back, it was too late. He had to try and move forward to see if he can get out in that direction, but as he excelled to fit through a tight spot, he just got stuck. His brother found him first and tried pulling him out by pulling on his feet, but he just ended up getting stuck for good as his arms were pinned under his chest. John was stuck 400 feet into the cave and 100 feet underground, and in order to get help and supplies, it would take an hour just to get to him every single time. The first rescuers arrived 4 hours after John initially got stuck, and they planned to use a system of pulleys and anchors to pull him out. The position that John was in was very stressful to his body as he was face down in a vertical hole, and rescuers could only see his feet. His heart had to work incredibly hard to pump out the blood from his brain, something that gravity does naturally when you're right side up. As they pulled with the rope and pulleys, one of the anchors came loose from the wall and John got stuck a little bit more, and that was the last plan they had. After 27 hours of trying to rescue John, he passed away on November 25th, 2009. His body has never been recovered from the cave, and the Nutty Putty has been sealed since that day. The cave had actually been closed since 2004 when a couple of Boy Scouts got stuck, and reopened in 2009, only 6 months before the fatal trek by John Edward Jones. James Mitchell, who was only 23 years old, had decided to explore Schroeders Pants cave with 2 of his buddies back in 1965. As the trio started down the cave, going through passageways named Lemon Squeeze and Gun Barrel, they reached an area where they would start to go down a vertical shaft that extended 80 feet down to a bell-shaped cavern. Mitchell was the first to try and go down. He hooked up all his safety harnesses, but midway down, he stopped. Something was wrong. He could not go down as something was stuck, and he couldn't go up as his hand kept slipping. He was being drenched by icy water at a rate of 10 gallons per minute. His partners tried to pull him up for 45 minutes without any success, so Bennett, one of his buddies, went out to try and find help. 6 rescuers came back and got into the tight spot to try and pull him back up, but found out very quickly that Mitchell wasn't able to help them at all, and pretty soon after, they found out that he was actually dead. Mitchell was only 10 feet below the rescuers, but 250 feet below the surface. Mitchell had been sitting in water that was calculated to be at 31 degrees Fahrenheit. The rescuers then tried to recover his body, but were unable to do it even after mapping the cave and drilling holes to try and get him out, but with no avail. They had to leave him behind. The rescuers dynamited the cave entrance, sealed it with rocks, and put a memorial headstone. 2 years later, another entrance was found to the cave, and about 20 people since then have been able to get down to the cavern where Mitchell's bones sit at the bottom of the 80-foot cavern. His remains weren't actually recovered until 2006 and given a proper burial. In 1959, Neil Moss went to explore the Peak Cavern cave system in England with other cavers when they reached a wide open chamber where they discovered the fateful passageway, 1,000 feet underground. The cavers believed the passageway to be about 40 feet straight down, and they lowered ladders down the hole, and Neil was the first one to go down. On his way down, Neil discovered some boulders that were blocking the hole, so he decided to move them, but it caused him to get jammed. He tried to keep moving down, but eventually got tired of struggling and tried to go back up, but couldn't move his feet enough to climb up the ladder. He then asked the other cavers to pull him back up as he grabbed onto the ladder. They managed to pull him a couple of feet before the ladder got caught on something, and they couldn't pull any further. The ladder had actually gotten stuck on the boulder that he had moved. They next attempted to use ropes to pull him out, but they kept shearing on the rocks. One rescuer was able to get a rope around Neil's chest, but this just caused his breathing to get even more labored. Neil was blocking the fresh air from being able to get into the cave, and he was becoming disoriented and was not able to help the situation when they brought in better ropes. Several rescuers also passed out from the carbon dioxide in the air. This forced the rescuers to bring in containers of oxygen and get it to the area in order to make Neil more coherent, but rescuers were still getting serious effects from the carbon dioxide every time they went down the cave. Rain eventually caused the rescuers to back off, and when they returned to the shaft where Neil was last heard breathing, there were no more sounds heard. Dr. Hugh Kidd had to pronounce Neil Moss's death, and it was the first and only time he had declared a death without actually seeing the patient. Neil Moss's father requested that his body be left down in the shaft, so nobody else had to risk their lives trying to get him out, and they sealed the lower part of the shaft with rocks. Neil Moss was only 20 years old. The very experienced cave explorer Floyd Collins was 37 years old when he made his final trek into what became known as a sand cave in 1925. He was a cave owner who would find caves in order to bring tourists in and make a profit. This is what he was doing when he got stuck as he was trying to find another cave for tourism. He had to squeeze himself through extremely tight passageways with only one lamp. As the passageway was about to widen, according to Collins, the lamp started to flicker, forcing Collins to have to retreat. As he was making his way back, his foot accidentally dislodged a 27-pound rock that fell on his ankle, wedging his leg in place. He tried everything, but was completely stuck. He was discovered a day later when rescuers tried to get him out, but his position was extremely difficult as he was stuck horizontally with his head right at the bottom of the vertical shaft that he needed to use in order to get out, meaning that rescuers had to work upside down to try and help him. The person that made the most effort was his brother, Homer Collins, who made countless trips back and forth to his brother trying to dig him out, but new rock would just fall on top of the place he just dug. Other guys tried to get in there when Homer was resting, but nobody could even make it near Floyd. He was stuck 140 feet into the cave. Homer even asked people to take food and supplies to Floyd, but they would never make it there. They would actually just stuff it somewhere in the cave and lie to Homer, saying that they actually got it to him. Later, they tried to pull Floyd out by force, which could cause his foot to break off, but nothing happened. Johnny Gerald was the rescuer who did the most uncovering of Floyd's body, and this allowed him to move just a bit. Johnny was actually Floyd's friend. They tried to lift the rock that was wedged on his ankle, but it just kept slipping off the jack. On their next attempt down, they saw that the cave was collapsing, and they came upon a pile of dirt blocking Floyd completely. They continued to dig and were able to see the light around Floyd's neck once again, but when they came back again later, they found the cave had collapsed one more time. That was the last rescuer to go in that direction. They eventually tried to dig a hole next to the cave where Floyd was stuck, and they did get there, but it took way too long, and Floyd had already died 3 days before they made it to his rock coffin. They left him in there as the tunnel they dug was also collapsing. His brother Homer eventually did get him out and buried him 2 months after that fatal day. I have explored caves in the past, but they have been caves where I have been able to walk while standing at all times, as they were actually mines. But I would never dare to go into a cave where I have to crawl or even drag myself to get through a gap. Thanks for watching this video. See you next time.